Families Connection Group. We are going to record the first part for our guest speaker, so that we have that saved in our archives. My name is Olivia Feaster, and I'm a parent in Wyoming. I live in Sheridan, and I have a little boy who's 4 who is deaf and has a cochlear implant. And we are excited to offer our speaker, Callie Ellis, today, Dr. Callie Ellis. She's an audiologist in Casper. Many of us know her, and this bi-weekly meeting is just a time for us to learn some new information, talk with each other, and make connections as parents. Sometimes it's challenging living in our big state to know what resources we have available and just feel like we're not doing this journey alone. So I appreciate everybody being here. Kim, do you think we should do introductions now or wait for everyone that's on the call? I kind of forget how we do that.
That's good. Okay. I'm admitting one more person, and then I think we should go ahead and do real quick introductions then.
Okay, great. We'll wait until everybody's fully on. Okay. Who wants to start? Annette, can I pick you?
Absolutely. So introductions, Olivia?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think everybody knows me. So Annette, the We Plus coordinator, and so glad to be here again.
May, do you want to go next?
Hi, May. I live in Leander. I have a 4-year-old named Crosley, who wears the cutest little pink hearing aids and loves Dr. Callie and Kim. And yeah, I guess that's it. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Kim, do you want to go?
Sure. So my name's Kim Ryman. I'm the parent of 3 kids. You guys all heard this multiple times at the parent training this weekend. My oldest 2 have hearing loss. My youngest was identified at 7.5 months of age, and then my oldest one was fitted with hearing aids when she was 21. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm so excited to see everybody on first and thirds. And I'm so excited that this is a parent-run meeting, and that Miss Olivia Feaster has agreed to join us and facilitate these meetings.
Awesome. How about Kristen?
Good morning. I'm Kristen. I have 2 kids, Ella and Finn, 5 and 7. I think Finn's probably technically out of the We Plus program because he's in kindergarten now, but I got the invite, so I'm going to take advantage. And both my kids are unilaterally deaf and have cochlear implants.
Awesome. Nancy, are you able to do a quick intro?
I would love to. Thank you for letting me join you. My name is Nancy Pajak. I am a person who loves all kids who have hearing loss and their mamas and their papas. So I'm just going to leave it with that.
Awesome. And how about Wendy? You right there?
Yep. Hi. Well, let's see. I did have to start my video. There we go. My name's Wendy Hewitt. I live in the southwest corner of the state, and I have 3 kids. My oldest was born talking, and she has a cute little baby. And Ruger and Cassidy are my 2 youngest, and they were both born with Connexin 26 loss, and they're doing great. And I was one of the 2 that helped or that started Hands and Voices in Wyoming, and I have been doing this for 18 years. So it's great to have all of you on.
Awesome. And then Stevie, we haven't met. I'm Olivia. I see you out there. Would you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Sure thing. Thanks for the reminder email today. That was helpful.
Oh,
I
good.
I'm Stevie Sy. I'm from Casper. I have 4 kiddos. My oldest 3 do not currently have hearing issues. We do have what appears to be a family component of hearing, so we watch them close. And then my youngest, Cole, is 2, and he has a unilateral hearing loss.
Okay. Well, thanks for being with us. I'm glad that email went through. We were just talking about how I meant to do that earlier, so better late than never. All right, well, Callie, we'll turn it over to you if that's okay. We'll get started with our guest speaker.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. All right, can we all see that? Okay. Good, great, awesome. Okay. So I'm Callie. You all know me. I think I know every single one of you on this. But I'm a pediatric audiologist in Casper, and then I'm also the program audiologist for Eddie here in Wyoming. So I get to have my hands in all things in regards to hearing loss, which is awesome in the state. But today, the point of this one is to go over some troubleshooting with hearing technology. So that's the focus, and let's just get into it. Okay, so kind of as we go through it, just some terminology that I might say that I just want you guys to know. I'm sure we all know these, but just in case we don't, BTE stands for behind the ear. It's a type of hearing aid. It's the majority of the style of hearing aid that's put on littles, just because they are pretty darn durable, especially with kids pulling them in and out. We can replace a tube pretty easy compared to a wire component that is typically in adult hearing aids. You might hear the term mini-right or a RIC hearing aid. This is one where instead of having a tube, you have a wire component that I was just saying. And it stands for, so RIC or right stands for receiver in the ear or receiver in the canal. So that's what that means. You have a BAHA, which is a bone anchored hearing aid, a CI, which is a cochlear implant, and then I'll use terms like sound bore. It's essentially the hole in the ear mold that we all see, the part that's going inside the ear. So just wanted you guys to kind of know what that meant. Okay, so some useful tools that we should all have when we are working with any sort of hearing device as we're troubleshooting. These are some things to have in the home, in your care kit, backpack, at grandma, grandpa's school, wherever. These are some necessity tools that you should have. Starting at the top left, you have the battery checker. So this is going to let you know if a battery is dead or working, where it's at in percentage of battery life. Listening tube. Always have a listening tube. That is going to be a big thing I talk about today. Littles cannot tell us how the hearing aid sounds, especially when they first start. So it's up to us to be able to do those listening checks to make sure that they're working. Hearing aid charts. These are great to kind of keep us in check as care providers, as interventionists, wherever we are on the scale of this. It's to make sure that we're doing that listening check. We can put down kind of how it sounds. It's a check on that end. In the middle there, you have your cleaning tools like a brush or a pick to kind of pull out wax. You have the bulbous thing down there, is I call it the air puffer. And then at the top right, you have, these are supposed to kind of mimic like pliers or tube stretchers, anything in that regard when it comes to ear molds. Below that, you have an extra ear mold tubing, and then scissors, and then a nail file. And we'll kind of go over how all these play into troubleshooting. Okay, so we're going to take it hearing device by hearing device. We're going to start with hearing aids. And like I said, I'm going to focus a lot on a listening check. So first we have to know how to do a listening check. For a hearing aid, we should all have that listening tube of some kind. to perform a listening check, you just put the bottom end onto the ear mold piece, and you want to make sure you have that it's covered completely. Otherwise, you're going to hear a lot of whistling. So make sure it's in there deep enough and has a good seal. And then you're going to put the earbud into your ear. At that point, turn on the hearing aid. That way you're not getting feedback too as you're trying to like get it all put in. And then once it's on, just talk, say random words. I usually say things like hot dog, baseball, cupcake, because I say that every day in my world. Sometimes I will just listen to the conversation happening around me. Whatever you so choose. We need to have a good amount of language going so that we can get a good understanding of how that hearing aid sounds. So what you're listening for is it clear? Is it amplified enough? Like, does it sound really soft? Is there distortion? So, is there static, fuzziness? What do you hear? And that's where that that listening chart can come into play, because you can mark down what you're hearing. If it all sounds great, it sounds the same as it has from day one, great, get them in the ears and get rolling with your day. But if it doesn't sound right, then we have to kind of go through some troubleshooting steps. And this is kind of how I work through troubleshooting in the clinic when I have issues going on. So if I have a hearing aid that sounds just off in any way, soft, or especially like no sound at all, I'm going to start with the battery. If we have rechargeable batteries, I'm going to make sure that, is it charged? Is it on? Great. If it's battery operated, I'm going to be pulling out that battery and checking it on the battery tester. If that all looks good, then the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the tubing from the hearing aid. The reason I do this, sometimes wax can get into the hole of the hearing aid, the ear molds, and that can block the sound from going through. And kind of how to determine, if you can't see the wax, how to kind of determine that is to pull the tubing off. Because if you go from no sound with them attached to the hearing aid causing feedback when that's taken off, that means that the issue is the ear mold in the tube, if that makes sense. And if that's the case, then I'm going to direct my troubleshooting to the ear molds. Is there wax in there? There likely is. So I'm going to use that little bulbous air puffer to puff some air through the tubing to see if I can get that debris out. If I can't, then I'm going to stick it in some hot water and soap to wash it and like lave some stuff up, and then try to puff the air through again. Or I'm going to be taking, let's go back here. That middle picture, that really tiny, thin one, I'm going to be threading that through. You can also thread floss through the tubing to help pull that wax as well. And then once that's all clean, then I'm going to reattach the tubing to the ear mold, and I'm going to do a listening check again to see if that's fixed the problem. Okay, so then let's say you detach the tubing from the ear, from the hearing aid, and you're still not hearing any sound. Now I'm going to be looking at like the microphones. Is there debris, something clogging those microphones? If there is, I'm going to take that little brush and wipe over those microphones there. And then do a listening check. You always want to be doing a listening check after each step to see if it solved that problem. If there's no debris in the microphones, or I brushed off and I'm still having issues, another thing that you can look at is the ear hook or the tone hook. So a lot of times they are tamper-proof, so you can't take these off. But if you can twist it off, go ahead and take it off and see if you hear sound emitting from the hearing aid then. If you do, that could mean that some moisture and debris has gotten into the tone hook, and we just need to replace that. And you can call your audiologist, and that's a super easy fix. Like if you're one of my kiddos, I'll send it in the mail to you guys to replace. Some other things to kind of look for, more in regards to like feedback. I know this is always a big issue. So let's say you have the hearing aid in, you're hearing a lot of whistling and it's just driving you bonkers. Some things to kind of look at are the ear mold fit. So is it loose? Is it tight? Is the helix lock in? What's going on? And by those things I mean, so the helix lock is the little nubbin part that goes up on the top of the ear, as you see on that left picture. You see that little nugget that's kind of tucked in. If that's not completely tucked in, it can cause the ear mold after a while to kind of work out, because it's the point of the helix lock is to keep that hearing aid in place. So if it's not put in correctly, the ear mold might kind of twist and turn and work its way out, causing that feedback. It's just not going to fit as snugly with it. So you want to make sure that's nice and in there. You also want the ear mold to look flush, like you see on that left-sided picture. The ear mold should sit nice and deep in the ear. You shouldn't see anything kind of poking out. If it is, then take out the ear mold and try again and put it in. Some other things to look for, like on the right-sided picture, if you look at that ear mold, you see a lot of gaps in between the ear mold and the ear. When you see a lot of gaps, that means that ear mold is really loose. That kiddo's probably gone through a little bit of a growth spurt, so it's not as tight in the ear, which can result in that feedback from happening. So, and if that's the case, let your audiologist know, because probably just need some new ear molds at that point. Some other things to look for is sometimes we can get tears in the tubing, especially if we're at the age where our kiddo is just pulling out the hearing aid by the tube. Sometimes they can get torn, or the tube can kind of pull out enough that sound's going to leak out. So if you are comfortable with it, you can always replace the tubing, or if there's a tear or anything like that. Or if you're not comfortable, then just getting in contact with your audiologist for that. All that being said, let's say you do everything, and it's still not fixing the problem. That's the point in time where you need to probably send that hearing aid in for repair. It could be something going on internally. So getting in contact with your audiologist so that they can get the paperwork, and get that hearing aid sent in. Any questions about hearing aids? No? Okay, good. We're going to move to bone anchored. So bone anchored. Sorry, my pictures are a little fuzzy. So to do a listening check on this one, if your kiddo has a BAHA or a bone anchored device, you should have gotten a post with a device. And the post is what allows you to do a listening check on a BAHA. So the post has a little indent at the top that you're able to snap in the connector with the BAHA. And then on the right-hand side, to do a listening check, you plug your ears, probably with your pinky or whichever you can kind of finagle, and you're trying to place that post tightly up against your mastoid, or that bone behind your ear. You kind of have to finagle it, because if you don't have a tight enough, like if you're not up against that bone tight enough, it can cause feedback. So you just kind of have to work around to kind of figure out how to get the ears plugged and get that post on. And you want to plug both ears. The same thing with the hearing aid. You're listening to how it sounds. Same thing, static, clarity, loud, soft, what's going on there. Some of the biggest things that I see with BAHAs, particularly those that are on soft band, or like the headbands is what that means, is that the soft band is not tight enough on the head. So kind of the rule of thumb, if you can fit 3 fingers underneath the headband, between the headband and the head, and you can stretch it, it's way, way, way too loose. It needs to be tight enough so that the connector piece connecting the BAHA to that soft band is tight up against that bone, because how a BAHA works is through vibration. So if it doesn't have a tight enough contact to that bone, it's not going to be vibrating as it should, and you're going to hear a lot of whistling. So rule of thumb for me, if I can fit 2 in, I want it to be tight, not horribly tight, but I want to feel some resistance when I stick 2 fingers in. And that's when you know it's tight enough. Some other things to kind of look out for in regards to a Baha. So the connector, as it's connecting to the soft band, or if the kiddo has an abutment, a surgically implanted abutment, is it loose when it connects in? Can you jiggle it around? You don't want to be able to rock it around a lot. It should fit in tight. Or is it falling off as you're trying to connect it? If it is, and if it's on a soft band, it could be that the piece on the soft band where you connect it to needs to be replaced, or it could be that there's something going on with that snap connector that it needs to go in for repair. Look at the microphones. These are on the front part of that Baha. Any debris, brush it off again. And then always checking the battery door. Is it closed all the way? Sometimes, especially with tamper-proof on the hearing aids and Bahas, you have to make sure you get that second click. You got to feel it snap in. So making sure that it's nice and tight. And then using the battery checker as well to make sure that's all good to go. All right.
Callie,
So then-
Callie, I'm sorry, this is Annette.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on placement of the Baha when it's on a soft band?
So a placement of a Baha, optimally, we want it behind on that mastoid. And you want the Baha to be facing upright. So if you look on the picture on this screen, the top picture, that's how you want it facing, but a little bit more up. That provides the best localization and awareness of sound because it's going to be where that ear is sitting. However, you have issues where depending on size of head, or if we have, I have kiddos on oxygen, or if you have glasses, that can make it really hard for that placement. So if you get it like right here, kind of on the side, same side as the ear that you're needing it. Like I have a couple kiddos that kind of more on the side of the skull, that's okay. Localization might be, and like optimization of sound might be a little off. But it's better than like front of forehead, that's going to be the hardest spot just because there's no localization happening at that point. So typically we want to be here. What happens a lot of times with infants is they'll start on the forehead, especially when we're riding in a car seat. You'll want it like forehead and then gradually move it back there. Does that answer that question okay?
Yes, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Okay, so then we have a cochlear implant. These are interesting. So depending on the manufacturer will depend on what you need to be able to complete a listening check on a cochlear implant. The two that I have here are the two brands that I hear the most of in Wyoming, which is Cochlear, which is on the left side, and then you have AB on the right. But you also do have Medel. I do believe it still kind of works the same, but I think they have an addition of like a remote control or something that you kind of have to switch into listening mode. But for Cochlear, it's just a special headset, essentially little earbuds, and you plug in to the cochlear implant, and that allows you to do a listening check. AB, as you can see, you have to add an intermediary device in between the processor and the battery to be able to plug in those headphones. But once they're plugged in, you just talk through the microphones and do a listening check as usual there. Same thing with everything else. We're listening to the sound quality. What are we hearing? Does anything sound off? What's going on? Troubleshooting with a cochlear implant's a little bit different though, because you have different pieces to it. So you still have a battery, always check the battery. Some of them are battery operated, the older ones at least. And then you have the rechargeables. So checking to make sure that we're charging as we need to, or making sure that the batteries are working. Batteries, especially rechargeable, and this goes across the board for any hearing device, they're like any other piece of technology we have. The more we charge it, the more we use it, the less the battery is going to hold. after a certain point. So if you do notice, like the batteries were charging all night, we put them on, they were great in the morning, and then by 11 o'clock they were at 40%. That could mean that that battery is just dying internally and that a new one needs to be put in. And that's an easy fix. It does have to go in for repair, but it's an easy fix. You have the microphones to check. Some you have microphone covers that can be replaced, or you can brush over with the brushes to kind of get that debris off. And then here's kind of where it changes. So you have the cable. A lot of times when you get static or just distortion in the signal with the cochlear implant, it can be due to the cable. Because that gets, bent, moved around a lot. So checking to make sure, is it plugged in all the way? Does it seem loose? Are there any kinks? If you have a replacement, because I know a lot of times with CIs, you get a lot of replacement things when you are first fit. So if you have a replacement, try out a new one and see if that fixes it. If it doesn't, put the old one back on and try to replace a different part of the cochlear implant. You kind of have to just a process of elimination at that point. Another part you want to check too is the external magnet. So how is it attaching to the skin? Is it coming off really easy? Like, have you noticed that the kiddo runs the other side of the room and then it falls off? It could be that that magnet is no longer the best strength for the kiddo, and maybe they need a little extra strength, or maybe vice versa. Maybe it's too strong a magnet, and you need to go down a little bit there. The big difference with cochlear implants is a lot of times, and this might be different because I am not a CI audiologist. So those of you who have kiddos with CIs, you can tell me if this is right or wrong, but you can call manufacturers directly, whereas that's not as common with hearing aids or Bahas. A lot of times the CI companies want the parents to contact them directly, send things indirectly, and work with them that way to get different parts. Whereas with a Baha or a hearing aid, typically you need to go through the audiologist that way. Okay. So then another thing I really wanted to go over is, and this is a big thing, so what if it gets wet? We've all had a panic moment where it gets dropped in snow, or we're in the bath and we forget they're on and they get splashed, or we're out in the rain. It's okay, first and foremost, these devices are water resistant, so they are meant to take on some water, okay? They are not meant to be dunked in, but they can handle a bit of moisture, okay? That being said, we do not want to have a buildup of moisture. So there are some options to dry it out. So the top right one is ones that you'll typically see for a cochlear implant. It's like an electric box that it works kind of like a dry aid, like a rice bag, but more like plug in the wall kind of thing. So more high tech than the one you'll get in your hearing aid troubleshooting kit. The ones that you'll get in the hearing aid troubleshooting kit, as well as Bahas, are the middle one. So you have a little tub, and then you have these little packets of pellets, and you put the pellets in the bottom, and then you put the clear tray in. Then you put your hearing device in there, turn it off, but you can put the ear mold and everything in with it, and then close the lid. You can leave it for a couple of hours. It essentially is like a rice bag to draw out that moisture. And then if your kiddo has more of the RIC style, so the receiver in the canal style, some of the rechargeable, the charging units have that little circular piece in the top, and that's for a dry aid pellet as well. So as the hearing aids are charging, they can also be removing moisture from the hearing aids as well. So those are all options. And just know too, if I've had kiddos that are just super, super sweaty, if they are A, just sweaty in general, or B, they do a lot of sports, there is the option for the higher tech dry aid kits, kind of like what you see for the cochlear implants, like the one on the top right. That's just a little bit more advanced and more intensive in drawing out that moisture if needed. Okay. Any questions about the hearing devices themselves before we move to FMs? Let's do it. Okay, so FMs. There's so much with these guys. So I'm just going to graze the surface, but if you have specific questions, please let me know. First, I want to start with BAHAs because this is one that I see the most issue with in regards to connecting to the remote microphone. So top left, you have your BAHA device. If it's an Oticon, you're going to be connecting to something kind of like the Connect Clip, which is on the bottom left. Once they're paired together, which is, it goes into automatic paired mode when you turn it on. And once you turn on the BAHA, it should connect once they're close together. However, that does not mean that the BAHA is in the remote microphone mode. They're just connected. To get to the remote microphone mode, on that picture of the BAHA, there's a button that says program button. You have to press and hold that button that's on the top of the BAHA for 3 seconds. And I'm talking 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and release, and you'll hear a da-da-da-da. And now you're connected in the remote microphone pairing for that. That is the one piece. You have an extra step with BAHAs to get to that remote microphone. Whereas with hearing aids, you can either have like a Connect Clip, or you can have a partner mic, which is the top right, depending on the manufacturer you have. To pair them, you literally just turn on the remote microphone. Make sure your hearing aids are off. The hearing aids are off, or BAHA is off. Turn on the remote microphone, turn on the hearing aids, make sure they're very close together, and then watch that little button. So if you look on the partner mic, which is in the top right, you see a green button in the top middle of that black part. That will be flashing and it'll go solid once it's paired, and it's very quick. Once it's paired once, it should be paired always. The only time that it gets unpaired is some weird mishap, or if the hearing aid has to go in for repair, you're going to have to reconnect it to that partner mic, but you should never have to repair it every time. You can only connect one set of hearing aids to a partner mic in a Connect Clip. So if you have multiple kids with hearing aids, just know you're going to have a separate remote mic for each of them, unfortunately. The only way that I found around that is to do like a big gal, like Roger educational microphone. And those are very, very expensive. So just know if you have multiple kids, you'll have to have a couple microphones. And then you have your school ones. So the bottom middle is the Roger touchscreen. And then the middle top one is the Oticon EduMic. The EduMic is very easy to use. It works a lot the same as like the Connect Clip or the partner mic in regards to connection, and it should stay connected no matter what. The Phonak Roger one, the difference with this one, so it can connect to any type of hearing aid, any manufacturer, it can connect to a Roger. You have to have certain receivers depending on the device. So you just have to make sure you have the right one. And you do have to connect it every time for the day. You do have to reconnect it. Some troubleshooting things with the school ones, because I know a lot of times we're sending like a partner mic or something to a daycare. You can do a listening check on these devices. It's easier if you have 2 people. So if you can get 2 people, great. It's not necessary, it just makes it easier. So how you would do a listening check. So make sure everything's paired, and then you're going to take your listening tube and you're going to put it on the hearing aid as you would normally. And then what I typically will do, if I'm doing it by myself, I'm going to put the hearing aid over here, and then I'm going to put the partner mic right here, and I'm going to whisper. And you should hear what you're saying through the partner mic in your ears because it's transmitting from the hearing aids. It's a little easier if you can have one person with the microphone go out into the hallway and say something. Or if the kiddo's old enough, you be the person that goes out in the hallway, ask an open-ended question. What did you have for breakfast today? What are you excited to do? And see if they're able to answer that question. But that's number one for troubleshooting with these FMs. Another big one that I see mostly with the Roger touchscreen mic is loss of connection. So you can look on there to see if a device is connected. And once it gets a certain distance, so once that microphone gets a certain distance from the hearing aid and the receiver, it no longer shows that it's connected, but I promise it is. 90% of the time it's still connected. It just doesn't show on the screen. So troubleshooting, listening check, ask a question, see if you just start singing a song, that kiddo like turns their head trying to localize what's going on. Doing the ling sounds. These are all great ways to check and make sure that microphone is on and working. Yeah. Okay. Some other things too, just to kind of know about in regards to FMs, you have to have a receiver. So there's two parts that you have to have for the big gals is what I call them. So like the Roger touchscreen, you have to have a microphone and you have to have the receiver. The receiver is going to be attached to the cochlear implant or the hearing aid, and that receiver allows it to talk to the touchscreen. Okay, so what they kind of look like on hearing aids is that top picture. It's the little bottom nubbin that's attached. Nowadays, those little nubbins are actually put inside the hearing aid, so you don't have anything attached to it, but just so you know what they look like. For a cochlear implant, it's a third piece that's added in between the processor and the battery. Okay, you have to have that receiver for it to talk to that microphone. So I know some troubleshooting that I've seen or heard about is, especially with like a cochlear implant, is it's not connecting to that microphone, but they didn't have the right receiver, so that's why it's not going to talk to them. Okay. So this is really everything I kind of talked about there. Making sure daily listening charts are super, super, super helpful, especially in daycares or with providers who are probably new to a hearing device and might be a little wary to it. Having that daily listening chart to make sure that A, they're doing it, and B, like, how is it going? What are they hearing? Kind of talking through that. And then a yearly in-service. So having a professional come in and talk to that child's new daycare providers or new educational team to make sure that they understand what the hearing device is, to not be afraid of putting them in the ear or taking them out, and just kind of some basic troubleshooting that they can go through too. I think the biggest thing that I found, especially in daycares, is we're scared we're going to break the device. So talking that in service is a great time to talk about, you're not going to break it. They are durable, and then making sure that they know how to put on and in those devices. Because a lot of times what'll happen too is if a hearing aid comes out, they are scared to put it back in. So then the hearing device is out for the remainder of the day, and that child has not had access to sound for the rest of the day. So making sure that they know how to insert an ear mold, how to position that soft band, and things like that. And that's a great time for that in service, is a great time to go through all of that. Okay. Question.
Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to your mini mics FM systems, and I had to just to step out for a minute, so I don't think I missed this though. Can you talk about the age at which you can start to consider having an FM system and the benefits of how many more words a day a child has access to when they're using that? And if you don't have that, I have my flyer right in front of me with that data.
That's good, because I probably won't know the exact data. I know it's thousands. I want to say like 3,000 to 4,000 extra words a day.
And what I have from Hearing First, it says 5,300 more words a
Okay.
day when using a FM system.
Yeah, it's a lot of words. I promote this from day one, to be perfectly honest with you. So like for my littles that are, if I have a 2-month-old that's just starting, sometimes we wait a couple of months for those parents to get used to just putting in the hearing aid and on the device. That's a huge thing to get through. But after that, it's whenever that family's ready, I say go. Car rides, it's a stellar time, even just in the home environment, even if it's just the parents and the little one, you still have things going on in the household that is going to affect how they're able to hear. And that remote mic is like you are sitting on their shoulders wherever they are and wherever you are. It's like you're their little buddy. So the exposure to sounds and words is just phenomenal with the use of those remote mics. So whenever, as soon as possible, go for it. As far as like the school FMs, we start preschool. So once a kid's in preschool, we are fighting if we can, as long as if they're on an IEP, for sure, we're working to get them an FM that will go with them through their school system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Callie. I just wanted to say that we'll stop the recording now and then we can continue with any parent questions or any additional questions.
Okay, that works for me.
Cool.